Yeah, here on the Appalachian Trail in New York. Um, they say memory is September 11th. Um, right, guys? I mean, wow. Just realize, that was about exactly 11 years from September 11th, the government came out and admitted that 911 was an inside job, right? So I'll keep going on the AT here, but take one more look at that. So what's going on with all the 911 memorial stuff if our own government came out and said that it was an inside job? So you don't really, maybe not everyone comprehends what that means, but what I'm saying is, in short, is that war is the biggest business on the planet. Most people know that. So if war is the biggest business on the planet, then of course you're going to get into what's called wartime profiteering, right? But, through the 90s, Americans, especially on the left, after a lot of, kind of war-heavy right-wing presidents, we really saw, and, post-Vietnam, we really saw Americans band together and become anti-war. When did Americans really become anti-war? That's when they started filming the body bags coming home from Vietnam. So what they did is they made that illegal. So you couldn't film the bags being sent home or the bodies. So that created disassociation and disconnection, right? And then that ended the protests. That ended a lot of the outrage, right? Because people, they don't have a connection to it anymore. They made it illegal act to film any of that. So, then eventually they could ramp the war effort back up again, essentially. And that's what you got into in the early 2000s there, as Dick Cheney, who was actually the real president, enacted the 7-year war on Lebanon, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Iraq, Iran, and Syria. And this allows the United States government to create perpetual warfare, arm and fund both sides of the war, right? Because the only war you can win is perpetual war, right? Where you're profiteering off of both sides, ranking in billions, right? If you're Boeing or Lockheed Martin, right? So, or Raytheon or Halliburton. So that's basically how it works, folks. So why 911, right? Well, 911, because you have to garner public support for the war, like I was alluding to before. So you garner public support for the war by creating an event like 911 and acting like, these people in the Middle East hate us and they all want to kill us and take away our way of life, so we better go fucking bomb them, right? But just look at the actions, of our government, of our military. And it's not our military. I get it. It's the people who are making the commands. But realize that people voluntarily sign up for the military for whatever reason. They're in tough situations. I get it, but it's still voluntary. It's not a draft. So, with that all being, and that is the greatest resistance, right? For us to all band together and force a draft if they're going to do that. But yeah, we got to stop voluntarily volunteering for the military, right? And that's why, now it's not even American citizens that are doing it. It's people to get their citizenship, like from the Northern Triangle in Mexico. Those are a lot of the American soldiers, right? People that aren't even Americans. So that's the world we're living in, folks, the global world. And, you create this false flag 911 event. That's very real, right? I mean, thousands of American civilians died, right? But not at the hands of Al-Qaeda or bin Laden, right? Who bin Laden goes back historically as great friends with the Bush family. These are all facts, folks. All well-documented facts. I can absolutely provide any evidence that you'd like. We'll, ask questions in the comments section, and we'll put everything up. But yes, Al-Qaeda, longtime friends of the, Bin Laden, longtime friends of the Bush family, going back, a dozen or so years prior to the staged event. And, that's what's so horrible, is that the American government can do all that to its citizen, right, to its civilian population. And the amazing thing is they even come out, in an occult fashion, exactly, in a ritualistic fashion, in a Freemasonic fashion, 11 years later, and admit it, because that is part of it. That is part of the spell. And, stuff like that still exists. Oh, yeah, remember 911? We got the bad guys and all this stuff. No, guys, the bad guys was your own American government that a lot of people still have this blind nationalistic fervor for. Still so dangerous going on today. Still tons of American involvement in Palestine, and now everything going on with Iran. So that might have been 2001. This might be 2025, but it's the same agenda marching forward. And if you're not familiar with the agenda, it's take advantage of underdeveloped nations, right? Strip mine them of their natural resources, then come in and say that you're going to develop the country. But really what you're going to do is sink it further into global banking. That's basically one of the biggest keys. International Monetary Fund and the World Bank, the IMF, right? Bring them all in. That's get them on the United States dollar as their standard currency, right? That's huge. But then what really is come in and this is how ugly it gets. It's not just privatized military industrial complex or contract companies, right? It's just Coca-Cola, it's Pepsi, right? It's your fast food joints, it's McDonald's, it's Burger King, it's Pizza Hut, it's Taco Bell, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, Fanta. I mean, you name it. These are these, I guess Fanta's owned by Pepsi, but these are the companies that profit in a big way. KFC. So when, and then that's just, we can get into all the American clothing brands. So that's what happens when the westernization starts. Then you come in also with the American corporations to profit off the people, create that Western lifestyle, divide up more of the middle class, create more of an upper class who wants these brand names, right? Like Gucci and Prada, they're all real big in it too. And this is the spread of westernization, and this is how indigenous populations change over time. And everyone wants to be branded, right? Branded. It's funny, the richest and the high classes are the people that want to be branded the most. But what is branding? Branding is from slavery, right? When you're branded, you're outwardly saying that you're a slave. So it's pretty amazing reality. So getting everyone's consent for 911 was extremely important to the ritual. And then going on, and then ultimately, right, think about what we did after September 11th, right? Went into Iraq, right? When everybody knows Iraq had absolutely nothing to do with 911. And still never really given an answer, right? Iraq has absolutely nothing to do with 911. There's no terrorists from, in the stories. They just go into Iraq anyway and go take it out on Iraq, right? And start taking down. See, what the United States does is Iraq and other countries like Iraq, who the United States goes to war with, are countries that will not give in to the U.S. dollar, to the IMF, and to the World Bank, and to the spread of westernization and American ideology in their countries. So what you do is you replace those regimes and bring in your own puppet governments. And who does this is economic hitmen or jackals like John Perkins, as he exposed in his books of The Secret Confessions of an Economic Hitman, and also his follow-up book, which is Secret History of American Empire. However, it's the one is the Secret History of American Empire, and the other is the Confessions of an Economic Hitman is the first one. So you can learn a lot from John Perkins, and he's not just into politics and geopolitics and all that, but he's actually, through his life and seen the sinking of the Banana Republic in Latin America and Central America. He's actually gotten really into shamanism and indigenous culture. So John Perkins is one of the great ones out there, one of the great Americans. And why he's still alive, not quite sure. They usually kill people like that in about a heartbeat. So don't really get how he's been able to stay alive. But so yeah, folks, that's pretty much it. You can't really trust anything on the surface. I'm sure it feels good to be patriotic and believe what we're told, but unfortunately, it's just not the truth, and there's no conspiracies. Our own government came out and said that 911 was an inside job. And it's great to honor those people, those victims who fell, but we have to recognize who they were actually victimized, and it wasn't from a terrorism. The war on terror was fake. It wasn't a war on terror, it was a war on terror, which is strip mining the earth of its natural resources, right? Before the World Bank and the IMF and all that, and the Western corporations come in, it's strip mining the earth of its natural resources, and whatever that country's rich in the Middle East, it's often oil, and then empire building from there. And we can go into Africa for a second and realize that Congo is the richest country on earth by far, but it's actually, on paper now, one of the poorest countries in the world, because the West, especially France, has stolen everything from the Congo. So that's it, folks. It just might be hard for some of you to believe it, but like I said, these are all well-documented facts at this point, and not really too hard to prove. It's just more of a reality of you just fighting against yourself to realize that everything that you've been basically told in your life is a lie, and that's basically what you have to work through. And once you can realize that and kind of swallow that, and there's probably years of anger and all that, but once you can get through that, then you can become a true patriot. You can become a true truth seeker, and you can be someone who truly walks this path of righteousness. And Alan Watt, not Alan Watts, but Alan Watt used to call it a sentient sentinel. So, from the Appalachian Trail in New York, folks, this is Veggin' Out. Signing off. Veggin' Out.